Hello and welcome to Latest Television. I'm Andrew Kay. Now, Latest Television has been a keen supporter of community projects for its entire existence, and I'm delighted to welcome to the studios today Melanie Knock, who is a community development worker for Wealden. Thank you for coming in. I know, it's a long title. I just like mine, art director. It's easy. It's an enormously responsible job because you are managing people's lives and their expectations as well.
It's really about supporting people's ambitions, if you like, as much as anything, and bringing a bit of technical support to where the energy lies in this very rural, very dispersed, very large area.
I don't think people think about Sussex as being hugely rural because we come across as being quite cosmopolitan, but in actual fact, this is a wide rural community.
Yeah, Wealden is huge, and we have none of the big towns in it, so we don't have the Brightons and the Lewis's and all that. We just have a few market towns and lots of villages, so it's very small scale.
And lots of people out there who want to do things, want to get involved in creating new projects.
Absolutely. And very much locality based, so it's about people's villages and their communities within those villages, and members of those communities supporting each other. So it's quite different actually from what you find in towns and cities, where people tend to work more across themes or support particular groups of people. We get less of that, much more about locality.
People don't really have a great deal of knowledge about how much it actually costs to set anything up. You know, we go into these wild ideas ourselves. I've done it. And then suddenly realise that actually you can't do it without money.
No.
And funding is hard to get. Is that one of your roles?
Yes, absolutely. Trying to help people get funding. I think, as you say, people have brilliant ideas, and then they discover that you need rent for the room, insurance to protect your volunteers. You probably need to put out a flyer to tell people it's happening, and all these things cost money. Not necessarily huge amounts of money, but nevertheless, it's not free. So yes, one of the things we do is very much to point people in the direction of funding sources, to help them to frame their projects so that they meet funders' priorities, and from time to time to help them actually write it. I don't tell anyone.
Well, I know all about that myself, having written funding applications in the past, and it is a minefield, and they're very specific, aren't they? They're sort of, I felt they were set up to stop you.
I think people sometimes think that, and I think it depends a lot on the funder. I always say to people that when the project is strong, it sort of writes itself. If you know what you're doing and what you're trying to achieve and who with and why, that tends to write itself. But that said, some people are better at writing than others, and why should somebody who has the energy to set up a community project also be a good writer?
Of course.
No reason at all.
I mean, you might want to run a yoga class, but it doesn't mean you say you can fill in a form.
No, absolutely.
And that is a problem.
That is a problem. And as is the whole business of trying to work out a budget and trying to project what the cost might be this year, next year, and the year after. Those sorts of things are not necessarily...
Well, that's another problem that is emerging from all of this, longevity, because you might get funding for year one and you might get funding for year two. But just as we have this phenomenon called charity fatigue, is there funding fatigue?
I think there's something about funders would really like you to be sustainable, so they pretend that you will be.
Pretend that you will be.
Yes, they put it out there that you will be. After a couple of years, we'll take the funding away because by then you should be sustainable, which really just means you've got to find another funder.
You're always looking for money, aren't you?
Yeah.
It's very difficult. But there must be exciting projects coming up all the time. I mean, do you have to choose?
No, we respond to anybody who asks for our help, and we help everybody. Sometimes I suppose the projects are stronger and more ready to go, sometimes less so, sometimes the impetus runs out before we finish, those sorts of things, but we don't say we'll help you and not you.
Do you ever have to make the difficult decision to say, this one hasn't got legs, it will not work?
From time to time I think that. from time to time, I think this probably won't work. But actually, I think the whole process of trying to set up something, after all, we don't set it up for them.
No.
We provide some support for them to do it. If it really doesn't have legs, they'll discover that soon enough.
So you don't actually
So I
have to
don't actually
say,
have to say it.
that's a bad idea.
I would never say that's a bad idea. If you think it's a good idea, it's a good idea.
And who supports you?
So I work for an organisation called 3VA, and 3VA gets its funding from East Sussex County Council and for me from Wealdon District Council.
So you are sustainable
Yes, for the time being.
for the time being. But I mean, these are jobs that didn't exist 20 years ago.
Yes, these are jobs that come and go a little bit, I think.
Yes.
And I've been around a very long time and I have seen them come and go in different places. I personally think that there's always been a need for this sort of thing because people have always wanted to set up new community initiatives, and there's always been a world of regulation and funding requirements and other requirements which has got stronger in the sense of the regulation and the requirements over the last 20, 30 years. But if you've wanted to be a charity and get the advantages that come with that, you've always had to comply with the regulations. So that's always been a need for it. Actually, I have been doing this sort of thing for 30, 40 years. So
I was also here to say that there are people out there who are more business-minded, who will actually have ideas and be more successful at putting them in place. And people who are less business-minded will struggle. So you're there to help perhaps those.
Yes, I think, as you say, some people will always thrive and fly on their own.
Yes.
Maybe they need pointing in the direction of a source of information. Maybe they need one model policy, but they'll always thrive. And of course, in these days of the internet and all the rest of it, it's easier to find some of that information yourself if you're you know.
Are you able to point people that come to you in the direction of other people you've already helped, so you have a mentorship?
Absolutely, yes. I do often say to people, why don't you go and visit so-and-so? They're doing something not dissimilar, or they're 5 years ahead of you, or they've got some really good practices. And I think that's a really excellent way for people to learn. And mostly I find community groups are very keen to support others along the way and to host visits and, have a chat, share policies, that kind of thing.
Well, sharing best knowledge is a fantastic way forward for any organisation, and actually learning from each other all the time.
Yes. And to that end, we have community network meetings. So we bring people together once a quarter. In the last 6 months or so, we've been able to reinstate doing that in person, which has been a huge improvement.
Yes.
So they come together and we talk about whatever. But really, it's an opportunity for people to get to know each other, to see who else is working in the district, and to make those relationships which build a partnership and trust and enable people to share resources and experience so much better.
You must have, over the years, met people who've come up with crazy projects, fun projects, exciting projects. What's the most exciting thing that you're working with at the moment?
Oh, I think that's a very invidious question, isn't it?
Absolutely, that's my job.
I'm not going to single out the most exciting. I think what I'm seeing a lot of are projects about combating loneliness in one way or another. So particularly with older people, and with older people who maybe have a degree of dementia, and their carers. And actually, often it's the carers who are lonelier than the older people themselves in a funny kind of way.
And particularly in a rural environment where isolation is so often ignored.
Isolation is a problem, and of course the solution to isolation is to come together with other people, but then transport's an issue, because if you live in a small village or a rural area, then there aren't many other people around to come together with. But there have been some really great initiatives to use. What we do have is a lot of village halls and church halls. We're very rich in spaces in that sense. And there have been some really great initiatives to bring people together in those spaces, around maybe a cup of tea or a lunch once a week or a game of cards, or really simple things that just bring people together and get them talking to each other. and then all sorts of things become possible.
It's very, very important work. It's very strong work that actually reminds us that community is perhaps the most important thing that we all need to cling on to in modern life. How do people get in touch with you, Melanie?
Through the website, the 3VA website. That's easy to find. 3VA is a easy thing to search for. And on there, you'll find community development and my contact details. And I'm really delighted to talk to anybody. I find their projects exciting. It makes my life worthwhile. So, yes.
Well, thank you so much for coming into this television and talking about your work. It is very important. Thank you.
And thank you for having me.
If you have a local news story you would like to share with our viewers, please email us at news@thelatest.co.uk. Thank you for watching.